Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Dani. I know there's a lot of new subscribers since my last video and I'm so happy, so grateful to have all of you here. Before anything, I just wanted to thank you for almost 500 subscribers. As I'm filming this, I'm like 2 subscribers away from 500. So if you're not subscribed yet, please do. And when I reach 500 subscribers, I'm going to post a giveaway on Twitter. So follow me on Twitter, the link is also in the description. And also I'm going to film a Q&A and you can leave all the questions that you want to ask me also on Twitter, so follow me there. Let's talk about the books that I read in July. July was not a great reading month. I was getting into a reading slump and it was really hard to drag myself out of it. I'm not even sure if I have already. I think I have, but we'll see how August goes. But I was still able to read 8 books, 2 of those being manga and 1 audiobook. These were the physical novels that I read in August, and then 2 more Fullmetal Alchemist and 1 audiobook, which was a total of 3,305 pages. The first book I read in the month of July, and what probably put me in a reading slump, was The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I already posted a dedicated review for this book. I'm going to link that in the cards right there. So I'm not going to talk too much about it here, but I absolutely love this book. It was one of my favorite books of all time. Maybe my favorite book of the year so far. And I was I don't know, it was just so good. I talked about it in my review, but it's not the most original plot ever. The story of this book is that the Lord Ruler, which is the big evil person here, has won and has been ruling the world for over 1,000 years, and they want to overthrow this guy. But the magic system is so unique. The world building is so perfect and so intricate, and I just loved it a lot. And I recommend it to anyone who likes any type of fantasy at all. It's pretty big, but the writing is so accessible. Don't be afraid of how big it is. Just go for it. After that, I read the 2 Fullmetal that I bought last month. I was supposed to buy 2 every month, but then we were making an order on Indigo for some other books that I'm going to show on my book haul, and I ended up already buying the next 2. I read this 2 in the beginning of August, now just August 1st, but I already read it. And this one's I read in July, but let's just put all of them together. And I finally finished this edition. Where is it? Here. This whole edition. Now I have to wait for November for the next one, or I can buy or read in the library the older edition of the books, but I don't know if I want to do that because I'm excited to wait, and I'm not excited to wait, but I'm excited to have this whole collection. I don't know, but I finished. There's not a lot to say. It's 6, 7, 8, 9 volumes in the manga. It's amazing. I'm giving 5 stars to all of them, and it's just so entertaining and I love it so much. After that, I read Incendiary by Zoraida Cordova. This book came in Our Crate, and I also did a dedicated review for it in my Our Crate book and box series. I'm also going to link that in the cards, and that's where it started going downhill. Because I didn't really like this book. I found too many similarities to Mistborn, weirdly, and it was just not as good. This tells the story of Renata. She has magical powers and she wants to overthrow the king with the rebels. The rebels are called Whispers. She has lived in the kingdom when she was little. They used her powers when she didn't know that she was being used. But then she was rescued by the rebels, and now she is joining them to try to overthrow the king. I thought this was entertaining enough for, I don't know, it's just a very simple story that didn't grab my attention, I didn't really like it. I have, like, you can check my review, I listed a lot of negative things about it, but not necessarily that this is a bad book for everyone. I still recommend it if you like YA fantasy, but I've read so many better YA fantasies. For example, just to name a few here, I don't know if you can see it, but Crown of Feathers, Girls of Paper and Fire, Bonecryer's Moon, even Spin the Dawn and Crier's War, which I didn't love as much, I still think was better than Incendiary, unfortunately. I gave Incendiary 2.5 stars. Final Empire and Fullmetal I gave 5 stars. And then the next one I read was for the reading rush, and it was The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I read it in the Brazilian edition. This tells a story about two co-workers who hate each other a lot. They are up for promotion. This is a romance book. I don't remember if I said that, but this is a romance book. I don't read a lot of romance, so I thought it was important to state that in the beginning. This tells a story of two co-workers who really hate each other, and then they are up for the same promotion, but things happen and they start to develop feelings for each other, and they fall in love. I gave this 2 stars. I really didn't like it. I thought it was so problematic. First of all, I don't get why they hate each other. I didn't understand that at all. Like, there's no backstory of why they hate each other. There's no explanation. And they do some pretty mean things to each other, but at the same time, they're always a little bit flirty in their hating. There's a lot of problems with the story, just in general. So much workplace harassment happens here. So much unwanted tension and flirting, and I don't know, it's just really wrong. Like, really, really wrong. The HR people just don't do anything. However, I read this book and I mentioned it when I was going to read it that I wanted to see what I thought about a romance book, and I actually enjoyed the experience of reading a romance novel, so I do want to try more. If you have recommendations for me of romance books that are better than this, please leave in the comments, because I'd love to try a few others. I want it to be a little bit realistic, like that would never happen in the real world, the things that they're doing here. But it was still entertaining. I want to read more, I don't know, from this author. Maybe you tell me if the other books are better, but I want to read more romance. Maybe. It's not going to be a priority. I'm not going to go out of my way to build a huge romance TBR, but I might fit a few in my m&ms TBR if it comes up. I also forgot to mention that I read this in Portuguese, and the translation, I think, made it worse. I'm for sure it made it worse. There were so many errors, so many typos for once, but also translation errors that I have to stop reading translated books when it's translated from English, because I know English, so I know what the author was trying to say in the original language, and when I see the translation, I'm like, that's not what they were trying to say, or you're making a version of what they are trying to say and not necessarily translating. And it really annoyed me. It was not a good translation. The next book I finished was an audiobook, and it was Invisible Women by Caroline Creodo Paris. This is a nonfiction about the gender data gap, so everything from history that data has excluded women, which in some situations creates bad experiences or just dangerous experiences for women. For example, since the beginning, seatbelts were not designed with women in mind. The dummies that they used were always male dummies, so we know that there are a lot of issues with seatbelts for women. She splits the book in a few different topics. So there's workplace, there's a bathroom topic, there's medicine. So for example, in some drug trials, women are excluded if they're on their period, because the period might affect the way the drug works, but then the woman is expected to use the medicine during their period, and then they don't know what's going to happen because they didn't test it. There is a lot. This is just an overwhelming amount of data and statistics and numbers that in an audiobook I already forgot pretty much most of it. I would never be able to remember all the numbers, but it was still very eye-opening. It was still so interesting. The one issue that I had with it was that it considers the traditional role that women has played in the world, and it's still the role that women play in many, many countries, but it's something that we should be trying to change. For example, being the person that mainly takes care of the household is something that historically, yes, that's what women has been, that's women's role, but that's something that we should be trying to change. And if we use that data to design things better for women to take care of the household, then we're just keeping them in that role. So I think I'm sure that that's not what she was trying to say, that women should be kept in that role, but I think I missed a little bit of how to go from here if we want to change this role. So I think I gave it 4 stars, and it's also a very binary man-woman narrative. She doesn't really explore much more or any more than that almost ever in the book, which I think would be great for the story that she's trying to tell. Not that there is a story, just the narrative of the nonfiction book. But there was still a lot. It was still a very long book, so I understand why she just picked something to focus on. But I think it could have been better for sure. But it was still very eye-opening, and I still recommend it so much if you want to be sad and angry at the world. The next book I finished was also for the reading rush, and I buddy read this with Kelsey from Reading with Kelsey, and that was The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. She gifted this book to me, and we read it almost together because I was struggling a lot to just read something for a long time and to finish it really fast. But we got to chat about it, and it was really fun. This is a gothic fantasy YA. The main character is called Celine, and she just moved to New Orleans, and she is living in a convent until she can find a husband. But she's very free-spirited. She really just wants to explore and meet things and see things. She's really an explorer, and she meets some very dubious characters. At the same time, there are some murders happening around the city, and a lot of it has some paranormal explanation. So I don't want to say more than this. If you heard about this book before, even in my TBR, you know what it is, but it's not necessarily stated here for a long time, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5, bumping it to 4 stars on Goodreads. I thought it was very slow, but the atmosphere of this book is fantastic. It's just so dark, and you feel like it's night all the time, although a lot of the book happens during the day, but you have like that night creepy gothic vibe that I loved so much. But like I said, I thought it was slow, and I thought the characters were not behaving normally necessarily. I think that I didn't understand a lot of their motivations, or I didn't agree with them. I don't think they made sense in the story too much. I did like the relationship between the main character and the love interest. I thought that was really good and different to see, just the way they interacted with each other. I'm really intrigued by the ending. The ending was the best part of the book. I thought it was very slow until I got there, but still the ending was not very satisfying, that I would need to keep reading the novels to see what happens, and I don't know how much I am interested in continuing, but I might. So I'm sorry if this review is not very informative, but atmosphere, amazing. Main character and relationship, amazing. Other characters, not so much. We have one side character who's fantastic also. I forgot. Odette, she's great. But all the other characters, I confused them a lot in the middle of the book, just who was whom, and we didn't hear so much about them, but then they are actually important later on. But I would recommend it. If you want some paranormal YA, I would definitely recommend it. And then the last book I read in July was The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stewart Turton. And this was actually a disappointment, because I thought this could be a 5 stars for me, and it was 3.5. I bumped it to 4, but as I read more reviews, I don't know if I should bump it to 3. But still, it was a great plot, amazing premise, so different from every other thriller that I've ever read, but still a bit boring. This had like 100 pages more than it needed, and like 10 characters more than it needed. It was just so confusing that I actually started writing things out. I don't know if you can see it, but I started writing things down at the end of the book just to keep track of what was happening, because I was so lost. And then I stopped writing at some point, and I got super confused because I actually got lost in the story. I really like, so this, what the story is about. This was a story of this man who just wakes up in a forest near a mansion, and he doesn't remember who he is, what he's doing there, what's going on. and some really weird stuff starts happening. And the idea here is that he wakes up in a different body every day, and he has to figure out who's murdering Evelyn Hardcastle. And I think that premise is amazing. Like 5 stars to the premise of the book. And I really like the plot twist in the end, even though it's not really possible for us to figure it out, but it's okay. I really think it was genius. But like I said, very slow. I didn't like his writing. It's really personal preference, but I thought it was dragging and just I felt like I could never get to the middle of the book. It took me forever to just get to 50%. I started to then listen to the audiobook, which helped a lot. If you are interested in this book and it feels like it's also going slow, I do recommend the audiobook. But then we have the big revelation of what's really going on here. Not the plot twist of the murder, but the revelation of what's really going on. And I think that was very weak. It was, again, a great idea, but it was explained in half a page, not developed, and they're like, but wait, what? Should we go back to that? What's going on? And then we get backstory on characters that, again, are never really important for the book. So it was a big disappointment for me. It was not a bad book, but it was disappointing, and it was long. Just so long. These were all the books that I read in July. I hope you enjoyed this wrap-up. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, and if you agree with me or if you completely disagree with what I'm saying. And again, remember to follow me on Twitter to participate on the giveaway and to ask questions for the Q&A. And subscribe to my channel, like this video. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye!